Everyone tends to have a bit of a bias when it comes to period dramas. We usually picture silent balls, strict etiquette, afternoon tea, and absolutely no action. But what if London's high society in the 1800s worked just like the wild high school dynamics of an American teen movie, only with tight corsets, lavish dances, and way more gossip? That's exactly the unlikely blend that makes Bridgerton an absolute phenomenon. Forget boring history class. This show takes the addictive formula of Gossip Girl, mixes it with royal aesthetics, and throws in a hefty dose of scandals, secrets, and of course, intense romances that rarely stop at longing glances. It's not just about who's marrying whom, or the search for the season's diamond. It's about an anonymous writer with the power to destroy reputations in a single sentence, fake dating that spirals out of control, and a whole lot of tension playing out far from the Queen's watchful eye. If you thought nobility played by the rules, think again, because today, we're diving into this British drama where the manners are flawless, but the backstage chaos is absolutely delicious. Welcome to London, 1813. An anonymous writer named Lady Whistledown begins spreading tea in a scandal sheet that sends the ton into a full-blown panic. Over at the Featheringtons, the mother is cinching her daughter's corset so tight that one literally faints in front of the Queen.
Today, a glimmer of displeasure, and a young lady's...
Meanwhile, the Bridgertons are that chaotic but perfect family. Think cheaper by the dozen, but elite. Daphne, the eldest daughter, is presented to Queen Charlotte, and it's a total win. She's named the Diamond of the Season. But it's not all rose petals and royalty. Her older brother Anthony decides to play the overprotective bouncer. He scares off every decent suitor and tries to pawn her off on Nigel Burbrook, a guy with the charisma of a brick wall and the vibes of a stalker. Hypocrisy is the name of the game, because while Anthony demands purity from his sister, he's busy having a torrid affair with opera singer Sienna Rosso, ghosting his responsibilities. Enter Simon, the Duke of Hastings. He's the classic brooding hottie with Batman-level daddy issues. He hates his late father and has sworn off marriage forever, but his arrival sends the town's mamas, led by Lady Danbury, into a feeding frenzy. To make Daphne's life harder, a distant cousin named Marina Thompson arrives at the Featheringtons, stealing everyone's attention and causing Daphne's stock to plummet on the marriage market. In the end, during the garden party, creepy Nigel tries to force himself on Daphne. Bad move. The girl channels her inner UFC fighter and drops him with a right hook that knocks him cold. Simon catches the whole thing and is impressed. The two come up with a brilliant 2000s rom-com idea, a fake dating scheme. This way, Simon gets the matchmaking mamas off his back, and Daphne becomes the center of attention again, making all the other guys jealous. The master plan is officially in motion. We jump back in time to see the origin of Simon's rage. His father was a monster who rejected his own son just because the boy had a stutter. It's basically the plot of The King's Speech, but with a cartoon villain for a dad. Lady Danbury, the real MVP of the series, takes the boy in and helps him overcome it. Years later, at his father's deathbed, Simon makes a vow of vengeance. The family bloodline ends with him. No heirs, ever.
I will never sire an heir. The Hastings line will die with me.
Back in the present, the fake relationship is trending harder than a celebrity couple on Instagram, but Anthony is still being the world's most annoying brother and insists on pushing Nigel on Daphne. Things heat up, and Simon ends up beating the crap out of Nigel, an extremely satisfying moment. The problem? Nigel plays dirty. He threatens to lie and say that he and Daphne were alone together, fearing a scandal will destroy her family. Daphne thinks she's stuck marrying the creep. Meanwhile, Eloise is on an impossible mission to figure out where babies come from, since sex ed in 1813 is non-existent. Marina, however, drops a bombshell. She's actually pregnant, the result of a romance with a soldier named George, who's off fighting in Spain. Just when things look bleak for Daphne, her mother, Violet, goes full Kris Jenner mode. She and the maids dig up some major dirt on Nigel. He abandoned an illegitimate child, and they leak the tea straight to Lady Whistledown. The paper goes out and Nigel is officially cancelled by society. The episode closes with Simon and Daphne sharing a high-tension dance, where he warns her the plan continues, but marriage and kids are off the table because of that vengeful vow to his father. The sexual tension between Simon and Daphne is so high it's crashing her dreams, but she always wakes up before the good part. In real life, the fake dating is working so well she's turning down proposals left and right, but the Duke is holding firm on his never marrying policy. Meanwhile, poor Marina is waiting for letters from George like someone waiting for a package with no tracking number. Lady Featherington, tired of the drama, goes full-gone girl and forges a fake letter where George rejects Marina and the baby. It's a low blow, and unfortunately, it works. At the latest ball, we meet Prince Friedrich, basically a Disney prince in the flesh. Cressida, the show's resident mean girl, immediately tries to mark her territory. Daphne and Simon are just people watching and making fun of everyone until Daphne lets out a pig snort while laughing. A real miscongeniality moment that humanizes the perfect protagonist.
That was entirely your fault.
How does one manage to make such a terribly unbecoming sound while laughing?
An innocent Daphne asks what happens on the wedding night. An awkward but helpful Simon explains the concept of self-love. It's 1813's version of love yourself first. Daphne is shocked but definitely curious. Everything is going great until Lady Danbury gives Simon a reality check. Either step up or step aside for the prince. The Duke panics, hits self-destruct mode, and ends the fake relationship brutally, telling Daphne they were never actually friends. Daphne is crushed but channels her sadness into a Princess Diana revenge dress moment. She glams up, makes a stunning entrance, and accepts a dance with the prince in front of everyone, while Simon slips away, knowing he messed up. Prince Friedrich is going all out to win Daphne over, gifting her diamond necklaces and acting like it's the season finale of The Bachelor. The problem is Daphne has the necklace on, but Simon is on her mind. The Duke is in flight mode, telling his boxer friend Will that he's leading England for good. Speaking of Will, there's a boxing match where Lord Featherington makes the worst bet in history. He bets against Will to make a quick buck, but the fighter wins, leaving the patriarch owing his soul to Victorian loan sharks. Meanwhile, Benedict discovers an art studio full of naked people and creative freedom, and starts questioning his straight-laced life. At the next ball, Marina is being pushed toward Lord Rutledge, a creepy old rich guy, but Colin Bridgerton saves the day with a dance, leaving Penelope in the friend zone once again. The real chaos happens in the garden. Daphne runs away from the pressure of the prince, Simon follows, and their goodbye turns into a cinematic kiss. Things get heated until Anthony shows up in protective Hulk mode. He punches Simon and demands an immediate marriage to save his sister's honor. The Duke, stubborn as hell, says he'd rather die than marry.
You would rather die than marry me.
I am truly sorry.
The result is a duel at dawn, Hamilton style. Anthony even goes to say a quick, "I'm probably gonna die goodbye" to Sienna. Just as they aim their pistols, Daphne comes charging in on horseback to stop the tragedy. She lays it all out for Simon. Cressida saw them in the garden, so it's marriage or social ruin. Simon finally confesses his big secret. He cannot give her children. A determined Daphne accepts the Note Kids package deal, and the wedding is on. Daphne decides she wants to marry Simon yesterday with a speed that would make a drunken Vegas couple blush. The official excuse is overwhelming passion, but we all know it's damage control to avoid the garden scandal. However, there's a hurdle bigger than Anthony's ego: Queen Charlotte. The monarch is offended that Daphne snubbed her nephew the prince, and in an act of royal pettiness, denies the special license for the wedding. Meanwhile, Benedict continues exploring the artistic underworld at Henry's house. Marina is playing the survival game. Pressured to marry a creepy old man, she sets her sights on Colin Bridgerton. She uses some heavy emotional manipulation, and the naive boy falls right into the trap, asking for her hand in marriage. Back to our main couple. The only way out is to face the beast. Simon and Daphne go to beg for the queen's blessing. The Duke delivers an Oscar-worthy speech about how Daphne is his best friend, and how that friendship turned into love. It works. The queen is moved and the wedding finally happens. But the honeymoon starts off rocky. At an inn along the way, Simon asks for separate rooms, leaving Daphne thinking he regrets the whole thing. Luckily, the tension snaps when they meet in the hallway. They argue about who trapped whom, admit they want each other, and the fight turns into the steamiest scene of the season. They finally consummate the marriage, but with a catch. Simon uses the old pulling out the troops technique at the last second. Daphne, who had zero sex ed, doesn't even realize the trick and thinks it was all perfect. Simon and Daphne arrive at their new estate, which is so big it would need a full episode of MTV Cribs to show it all. But they completely ignore the tour and the staff to break in the mansion their way, turning every room, garden, and staircase into an adult film set. It's a marathon that would make any other newlyweds look like Puritans. Between rounds, Daphne tries to play housewife and fails miserably at a local fair involving pigs, accidentally offending the peasants because nobody explained the rules to her. Meanwhile, in London, chaos reigns. Colin drops the engagement bombshell. Anthony almost has an aneurysm, but his younger brother is determined to elope to Scotland, Vegas style, before Marina's secret starts kicking. Penelope, stuck in the eternal friend zone and watching her crush walk into a trap, tries to warn Marina about the fake letters from her ex. Marina doesn't care. She admits she's using Colin as a luxury spare tire and basically tells Penelope to get over her crush. Back on the honeymoon, Daphne finally gets the biology lesson her mother forgot to give. She talks to her maid and realizes Simon doesn't have a medical condition. He's just mastered the art of pulling out at the 11th hour. Feeling betrayed, she takes a drastic and very controversial step in bed, forcing the Duke to see it through. The post-sex argument is brutal. She discovers that "I cannot have children" and "I will not have children" are two very different things in Simon's dictionary. To top off the misery, Lady Whistledown drops a nuclear truth bomb that likely came from a heartbroken Penelope. Marina's pregnancy is exposed to the world. Colin reads the paper, looking like his world just ended. The elopement is cancelled and everyone ends the episode at rock bottom. The honeymoon is over, and the vibe at Hastings House is colder than Elsa's heart in Frozen. Daphne and Simon return to London operating in Instagram fake couple mode. Bright smiles for society, absolute silence behind closed doors. Their mission is to clean up the Bridgerton name since Colin's disastrous engagement is the talk of the town. Daphne decides to play Sherlock Holmes to help Marina and tries to track down George, the real father. She even manages to set up a meeting, but the truth explodes in Colin's face. He realizes he was just a getaway plan and leaves with a broken heart, leaving Marina with zero options. Meanwhile, the Featherington house is a mess, with the patriarch trying to convince Will to throw a boxing match to win dirty gambling money, very mob movie style. Things boil over when Anthony tries to play the protective brother and gets into a fistfight with Simon at a gentleman's club. After the brawl, Simon finally confesses the truth to Daphne. The problem isn't biological. He made a vow of revenge against his dead father to end the family line. It's peak daddy issues. Daphne gives him an ultimatum. Either he gets over his hate for his father or their marriage will be nothing but a miserable facade. The ending is pure depression. Marina, realizing her plan has failed, drinks a questionable herbal tea in a moment of desperation, seeking a risky solution. And during a fancy concert, Daphne feels the physical confirmation that Simon's technique worked. She isn't pregnant. The episode ends with Daphne crying in her mother's arms and Simon holding back tears, confirming that, for now, hate has beaten love. You know that couple that posts smiling photos on social media but actually hates each other? That's Daphne and Simon now, posing for an official portrait. The Duke has his bags packed to skip town as soon as the ball is over, leaving Daphne in a total funk. Meanwhile, the Featheringtons get a visitor, Sir Philip Crane, George's brother. The news is grim. George died in the war.
I have come bearing grim news today. My brother George died on the battlefield.
Philip, in a move that's part Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Collins style, and part tragedy, proposes to Marina to save her honor and raise the baby. She refuses at first, but with no other choice, she ends up in the carriage with him. Accepting a loveless fate, Lord Featherington decides to make the biggest bet of his life. He puts the deed to the house on the table against Will in the boxing match, and Will, wanting to secure his family's future, agrees to take the dive. The Lord wins a fortune, but celebrates too early. The loan sharks sniff out the fix and send the patriarch to the big house in the sky via a bottle of poison. Game over for him. In the romance department, Anthony tries to take Sienna to the official ball, but she has more common sense than him and ends things for good. Anthony is devastated and decides that next season he'll marry strictly for duty, deleting love from his operating system. At the final grand ball, it starts raining because every romantic climax needs the Notebook vibes. Daphne, inspired by a speech from her mother, corners Simon. She tells him to his face that loving someone is a choice and he needs to drop his petty pride. It works. The Duke finally lets go of his revenge against his dead dad and stays. This time, they settle the heir issue for real. Meanwhile, Eloise tries to play Sherlock Holmes to save Whistledown from a trap set by the Queen. She manages to warn the writer's carriage just in time. And then comes the final Gossip Girl plot twist. We see who's inside the carriage as she pulls back her hood. It's Penelope. The quiet one was running the game the whole time. The season ends with the birth of Simon and Daphne's son, proving love finally won. Anthony Bridgerton has decided it's time to settle down, but he's treating the search for a wife like a corporate job interview. The guy is literally walking around with a clipboard, interviewing London's debutantes like he's hiring a LinkedIn intern. He wants a woman who is perfect, smart, and fertile, but he's made one thing clear: love is banned from the equation. He's a robot programmed only to procreate. Meanwhile, poor Eloise is having a panic attack over her societal debut. She tries to run away, but in a comedy movie twist, she ends up charming Queen Charlotte with her brutal honesty. dynasty. But the real MVP is Penelope. Hiding in the shadows, she adopts a fake Irish accent and negotiates with her printers like she's the Walter White of Breaking Bad, ensuring Lady Whistledown keeps destroying reputations. During a morning ride, Anthony meets his match, Kate Sharma. She's a newcomer who takes zero crap from anyone and humiliates him in a horse race. The vibe between them is pure sexual tension disguised as hate. That classic 10 things I hate about you energy. At Lady Danbury's ball, Anthony shows his worst side. Kate overhears him telling his friends he just wants an acceptable wife to raise his kids, not caring who she actually is. Kate, who isn't having it, shreds the Viscount right then and there. But fate is ironic. The Queen names Edwina, Kate's sweet younger sister, the Diamond. Anthony decides on the spot he's going to marry Edwina. To top it off, the new Lord Featherington finally arrives. Instead of the grumpy old man everyone expected, it's young Jack, straight from America, ready to mess up Lady Featherington's plans. Kate Sharma has activated War General mode, managing Edwina's suitors with a strictness that would make a NYC bouncer jealous. Anthony tries to break the line, but Kate is an impenetrable wall. Things heat up at the horse races, where the Viscount tries to play expert, but Kate knows more about betting than a Vegas regular. She humiliates him by picking the winning horse, High Flyer, while Anthony stands there looking like a fool after betting on the loser. The hate chemistry between these two is throwing off so many sparks, it's a miracle the track didn't catch fire. Meanwhile, poor Philippa Featherington finally manages to marry Mr. Finch. Yes, the cheese guy. But the new Lord Featherington, cousin Jack, is giving off major Netflix scammer vibes. He's handing out expensive gifts and fake smiles, but Portia has already sensed something is off, though she's willing to use it to the family's advantage. Eloise decides to play Sherlock Holmes again and tracks down Lady Whistledown's printer, but instead of the blogger, she finds Theo Sharp, a cute, and more importantly, feminist, assistant. There's an immediate intellectual spark, like a meet-cute from an indie movie. Lady Danbury hosts a soiree that basically turns into a cringe talent show, American Idol audition style. Grown men playing flutes and doing sketchy magic. Anthony crashes the party, borrows a poem from Benedict, and in a moment of pure drama, tosses the paper into the fireplace. He delivers an intense speech about duty over passion. The naive Edwina thinks it's honest, but Kate almost faints from the sheer sexual tension in the air. To end a bad day, Colin returns from his travels, and when Penelope tries to flirt, he hits her with the worst friend zone in history. You don't count, you're Penelope.
I am a woman.
You are pen. You do not count. You are my friend.
To make matters worse, Penelope goes to the printer to fix a Whistledown issue and runs right into Madame Delacroix, the modiste. The secret has never been closer to leaking. In a heavy flashback that explains why Anthony is a ball of stress, his father, Edmund, dies right in front of him from a bee sting. Yeah, like that traumatic scene from My Girl, but with a grown lord. Young Anthony has to take over the family while his pregnant mother spirals. Trauma unlocked. Back in the present, the Bridgerton clan and the Sharmas head to their country estate, Aubrey Hall. Daphne arrives with baby Augie to play the annual game of Pall Mall, which is basically the Hunger Games with croquet mallets. The rivalry between Kate and Anthony hits nuclear levels. She steals his favorite mallet, leaving the Viscount with a ridiculous pink hammer. They end up hitting each other's balls into the woods and getting covered in mud trying to get them back. It's total The Notebook mud vibes, lots of laughing and chemistry, until Anthony remembers he hates love and runs away. Meanwhile, at the Featheringtons, Portia is running a low-budget succession scheme, trying to push her daughter Prudence onto cousin Jack to secure the inheritance. Benedict decides to try a bit of magic powder that Colin brought back from his travels, and ends up completely stoned, turning a formal dinner into a full-blown comedy show. Anthony tries to propose to Edwina at dinner but chokes at the last second because the ghost of romantic love scares him more than a horror movie. But the big moment happens in the garden. A bee lands on Kate. Anthony has a full-blown panic attack, reliving his father's death. Kate calms him down by placing his hand on her heart. His breathing returns to normal, but the sexual tension explodes. They almost kiss, but a horse neighs, breaking the spell, and they run in opposite directions like scared teenagers. Preparations for the Aubrey Hall ball are in full swing, but the mood is tenser than a reality show season finale. Anthony tries to avoid Kate at all costs, but their chemistry is unavoidable. In an innocent attempt to bring them together, Edwina suggests Kate join the men on their hunt. Bad move for the Viscount's peace of mind, but great for us. In the woods, we get the classic, let me show you how to hold the gun trope, where posture correction becomes an excuse for intense physical contact. Meanwhile, Colin decides to do some emotional tourism and visits his ex, Marina. The meeting is awkward and she gives him a reality check. She tells him to get over the past and look at the people who actually care about him, a not-so-subtle hint about Penelope. In the most chaotic B-plot of the show, Portia Featherington sets up an Ocean's 11-style scheme to catch Cousin Jack with Prudence in a manufactured scandal. The plot twist? Jack reveals he's more broke than MC Hammer in the 90s. It's a scammer trying to scam a scammer. The tension finally explodes in the library during a storm. Anthony and Kate share their traumas about losing their parents and almost kiss, until Daphne walks in and catches them in the act. His sister tries to give him some wise advice to stop denying his feelings, but it backfires. In a total panic and terrified of falling in love, Anthony makes the stupidest move possible. He runs outside and asks for Edwina's hand in marriage right in front of Kate. Congratulations, Anthony. You've just made everyone's life a mess. Queen Charlotte decides that the wedding of the century needs her personal touch and takes total control, turning the ceremony into a Super Bowl level event. Edwina is living her Disney princess dream, while Kate is stuck in that nightmare where you scream but no one hears you. Tension rises during a visit to the jeweler, where the Viscount's family ring fits Kate's finger perfectly, creating a moment more awkward than running into your ex at the mall. At the park, Kate tries to enjoy a boat ride with Mr. Dorset, but Anthony is watching everything like a jealous hawk. When helping his future sister-in-law disembark, the chemistry explodes. Anthony trips over a dog and falls into the water, dragging Dorset in with him. We get our Colin Firth-style wet shirt moment, but with much more repressed rage. The climax happens during a disastrous dinner with the Sheffield grandparents, who are essentially the toxic relatives from Succession. They reveal the secret dowry deal Kate has been hiding, humiliate Mary, and treat everyone like trash. Anthony becomes the hero of the night, fiercely defending the Sharma women and kicking the old folks out of the house. After this monumental fallout, Anthony corners Kate and finally admits it. She is the bane of his existence and the object of all his desires. He wants to call off the engagement, but Kate, stubborn as ever and wanting to protect her sister's glass heart, begs him to go through with the wedding. Meanwhile, Benedict takes his art classes a bit too seriously and ends up in bed with the model. And in the scammer subplot, Jack admits the ruby mines in America are fake. Portia's solution? Instead of canceling everything, she decides they'll sell shares of these non-existent mines to the ton. The day of the wedding of the year has arrived, and Queen Charlotte is acting like a controlling momager to ensure everything is perfect. At the altar, Anthony is physically present, but mentally, he's in a fanfic where Kate is the bride. When the elder sister walks in, the look they exchange is more intense than a championship final. Mid-ceremony, Kate drops a bracelet. Anthony rushes to help, and boom, the penny finally drops for Edwina. She realizes she's just an extra in her own movie and pulls a Julia Roberts in Runaway Bride, leaving the Viscount standing at the altar. Behind the scenes, chaos reigns. Edwina is furious and demands the truth. Anthony, with the tact of a rhinoceros, tries to convince his bride to return using the worst possible argument. Let's marry for our duties. Forget this love business. It's basically a corporate merger proposal. While guests gossip in the garden and Portia uses her daughter as bait to sell the ruby mine pyramid scheme, Eloise continues to risk everything to see Theo, unaware that the Queen's spies are watching her. The final blow comes after a heart-to-heart with the Queen and King George. Edwina decides she deserves more than being a consolation prize, calls off the wedding, and gives Kate and Anthony a piece of her mind for trying to control her life. With the church empty and the wedding ruined, the problem couple finally stops fighting the obvious. After an eternity of built-up sexual tension, Anthony and Kate finally kiss. Hallelujah! The day after the cancelled wedding starts with a heavy moral hangover vibe. Queen Charlotte is furious, feeling like she's been made a fool of, and decides to fixate on the idea that Eloise is Lady Whistledown. The ultimatum is clear. She has 3 days to confess, or she'll be destroyed, like a celebrity being cancelled on Twitter for 10-year-old tweets. Meanwhile, the Bridgertons and Sharmas try to pull off some Hollywood-level crisis management. The strategy is to pretend the breakup was totally amicable, but no one is buying it. They try to take a stroll in the park and get the collective cold shoulder from society, Mean Girl style, like when Regina George George is banned from the lunch table. No one looks, no one speaks, the ghosting is real. To try and clear their names, they decide to host a harmony ball, but the party turns into a literal fire festival. They invite the whole town, and absolutely no one shows up. It's embarrassing, but the family decides to dance by themselves anyway, pretending everything is normal. The problem is that Penelope, realizing her friend is in the queen's crosshairs, makes a drastic decision. She writes a Whistledown issue exposing that Eloise has been meeting with political radicals without a chaperone. The plan works to get the queen off her back, since Whistledown wouldn't expose herself, but it destroys Eloise's reputation in society. Amidst this chaos in the empty house, Kate and Anthony meet in the gazebo. The tension accumulated over 15 episodes finally explodes. After much arguing about duty and honor, they stop fighting, and what everyone's been waiting for finally happens. They go all the way right there in the garden, but guilt hits hard the next morning. Kate wakes up, takes a horse, and rides out into the rain in a very dramatic scene, but the animal gets spooked, and she takes a nasty fall, hitting her head and leaving Anthony desperate, thinking the protagonist has met her end. Anthony carries an unconscious Kate to Lady Danbury's house, and she remains in a coma for an entire week, leaving everyone in a panic. Meanwhile, cousin Jack and Portia Featherington decide to pull one last job, an extravagant ball to fleece Baton's money before fleeing to America, like a period-accurate Bonnie and Clyde, just with more corsets. When Kate finally wakes up, Anthony rushes to propose, but she refuses, thinking it's only out of obligation and that he doesn't truly love her. The drama drags on until the Featherington ball. There, Colin decides to play Sherlock Holmes, discovers Jack's rubies are fake, and warns Portia. That's when the matriarch shines. She betrays Jack, keeps all the scam money to take care of her daughters, and ruthlessly kicks him out of London. On the dance floor, Edwina gives her sister her blessing and tells her to be happy. Anthony and Kate stop giving a damn about etiquette and dance together in front of everyone. The chemistry is so undeniable that the queen intervenes and publicly approves of the couple, saving both families' reputations. Later in the garden, the two finally let their guard down, confess their love, and the real proposal happens, complete with fireworks. But it's not all celebration. Eloise rages through Penelope's room and discovers the truth. Her best friend is Lady Whistledown. The fight is devastating, full of screaming and accusations, and the friendship ends right there.
I wish never to see or speak to you again.
To top off Penelope's misery, she overhears Colin telling his friends he would never dream of courting her, a brutal friend zone moment. Heartbroken and alone, she picks up her pen to write her gossip column again, this time with a vengeance. The finale shows Anthony and Kate 6 months later, blissfully married and super competitive, ready for another round of family Pall Mall. Gossip season is open again, Gossip Girl style but with corsets. The focus is now on Francesca Bridgerton, who is making her debut. Unlike Daphne, she's an introvert who'd rather play funeral music on the piano than hunt for a husband. Her presentation to the queen is adequate, but it lacks that wow factor the monarch loves. Meanwhile, Colin returns from his travels across Europe with a new look, sort of a cool backpacker vibe, distributing charm and gifts like he's an influencer on tour. But the real revolution belongs to Penelope. Tired of being ignored and wearing those hideous yellow dresses, she decides enough is enough. Pen swaps her wardrobe for a killer emerald green look, worthy of the Princess Diaries, and decides she needs a husband ASAP to get out of her mother's house. Portia Featherington, by the way, is desperately pressuring her other daughters to produce an heir and secure the family fortune since cousin Jack ran off with the cash. At the opening ball, Penelope's glow-up catches everyone's eye, but she freezes when it's time to talk to suitors. To make matters worse, Cressida Cowper, the Regina George of the series, steps on her dress and tears the fabric, humiliating her. The weirdest part? Eloise is now friends with Cressida, making it clear her friendship with Pen is truly dead. Colin tries to be nice, but Penelope throws that cruel comment from last season about never courting her back in his face. A guilt-tripped Colin makes an unusual proposal. He'll act as her hitch, a love doctor, and teach Penelope how to win a husband. They strike a deal. The final cliffhanger features Colin reading the new Whistledown column, which mocks his new personality, and swearing to destroy the author if he ever finds out who it is. Little does he know, Queen Charlotte is harder to please than Simon Cowell on a bad day. Nothing impresses her, not even a diamond-encrusted pineapple. Meanwhile, the Mondrich family is living a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot. They went from rags to a 27-room mansion overnight. They try to follow the rules of the nobility like sleeping in separate beds, but soon decide to throw the manual away and enjoy the rich life their own way. The focus returns to Project Hitch. Colin convinces Penelope to continue the flirting lessons. The training starts a bit disastrously, with Pen trying to wave her fan without looking like she's swatting flies.
Mrs. Featherington, you seem discomposed.
No? Forgive me. I'm quite well, my lord.
But things get serious in the Bridgerton drawing room. Colin cuts his hand, Penn bandages it, and we get that classic moment of sexual tension where no one speaks, but the atmosphere weighs a ton. The problem is that Eloise catches Penn leaving, and in a moment of weakness, spills the beans to the viperous Cressida Cowper. At the ball, disaster strikes. Penn tries to flirt with Lord Basilio, but the guy starts crying because his horse died. Worst date ever. To top it off, the gossip about the flirting lessons goes viral in the ballroom. Everyone starts whispering and laughing at Penelope. On the other hand, Francesca, who just wanted to play piano in peace away from everyone, accidentally impresses the queen and earns the royal seal of approval. Penelope decides to own the humiliation and writes about her own scandal in Whistledown to avoid suspicion. Devastated and convinced she'll be single forever, she finds Colin in the garden and makes a desperate plea. One kiss, just so she doesn't die without knowing what it's like. Colin agrees, thinking it's an act of charity, but the kiss ends up being much more intense than planned, leaving both of them completely shaken.
Thank you.
Colin wakes up startled after a steamy dream about Penelope. The friend zone barrier has been demolished in his subconscious, but in real life, the tension is heavier than a teen drama season finale. They decide to end the flirting lessons and keep their distance. Emotional social distancing to avoid more gossip. A new player enters, Lord Debling. The guy is basically history's first hipster vegan, obsessed with nature and a plant-based diet. Cressida, desperate for a rich husband and to escape having her allowance cut by her father, pretends to love birds to impress him, but it's Penelope's brutal honesty that starts winning him over. At the balloon event, things go off the rails. Up meets disaster movie style. A gust of wind untethers the balloon, and Colin, Will, and Benedict have to go into Avengers mode, holding the ropes with brute strength. But the standout is Lord Debling, who throws himself in front of Penelope to protect her, like Kevin Costner in The Bodyguard. Meanwhile, Francesca meets the suitor chosen by the queen, a marquis who wants 8 children, basically trying to cash cheaper by the dozen. She flees that nightmare and finds peace in silence with a mysterious stranger outside. As for Benedict, he meets Lady Tilly, a widow who knows her way around machinery and radiates total Mistress Robinson vibes. At the final ball, Penelope decides to be real with Debling. She admits she hates the wilderness and prefers staying home to read. Surprisingly, Mr. Veggies loves the honesty and asks her to dance. Colin, watching his crush slip away, tries to find the courage to speak up but loses his timing, left watching them on the floor with a total lost puppy look on his face. Lord Debling arrives in full force, bringing a plant as a gift for Penelope. The guy is basically a walking National Geographic documentary, or that annoying friend who only talks about hiking and the paleo diet. Portia Featherington, of course, is loving it because she smells money and stability, telling her daughter to focus on Mr. Nature and forget any nonsense about true love. Meanwhile, Francesca is living every introvert's nightmare. The queen is trying to push a marquis who talks way too much, but then John Sterling appears. Their date, sitting in absolute silence looking at nothing. It's like the romantic version of A Quiet Place. And Francesca finally feels like she's found her tribe, leaving her mother Violet confused by so much awkward silence. At the ball, the tension explodes. Colin tries to drown his sorrows with his bros, but he can't stand seeing Penelope dance with another man. He interrupts the dance, creating a scene. Debling, who is no fool, immediately realizes there's repressed feelings there and decides to jump ship, leaving Penelope devastated, thinking she's lost her chance to marry. Then comes the scene everyone was waiting for. Penelope flees in her carriage, but Colin chases after her like an action movie hero. He hops in. They have a quick heart-to-heart where he admits he's been dreaming about her and that the friend zone has become torture. The talking ends and the temperature rises to 50 Shades of Grey levels. Things get frantic, wandering hands and all, until the carriage stops at Bridgerton House. Still a bit disheveled and totally in love, Colin reaches out his hand and drops the bombshell. For God's sake, Penelope, are you going to marry me or not? Romance is in the air.
What? Your family will see me.
For God's sake, Penelope Featherington, are you going to marry me or not?
and Colin finally goes public with the engagement, leaving the Bridgerton family in celebratory mode. Well, almost everyone. Eloise leaves the room looking miserable and corners Penelope in the hallway. She lays it out straight. Either Penn tells Colin she's Lady Whistledown, or Eloise will drop the bomb herself. The deadline? Midnight. It's literally a 24-style countdown in the middle of the aristocracy. Meanwhile, Anthony and Kate return from their trip glowing with happiness and with a baby on the way, but they're keeping the secret for now. Colin wastes no time and takes Penelope to see their future home. The place is unfurnished, but he decides to inaugurate the space right then and there. He delivers a passionate speech in front of a mirror, and the temperature rises to a level that would put 50 Shades of Grey to shame. But it's not all sunshine and roses. Queen Charlotte, tired of losing the game, offers a massive reward for Whistledown's identity. At the engagement party, the tension between Eloise and Penelope turns a simple game of charades into a psychological battle. Cressida Cowper, desperate to escape an arranged marriage to a grumpy old man, sees her golden opportunity. As the clock strikes midnight and Penelope is about to confess everything, Cressida stands up and shocks society by screaming that she is Lady Whistledown. Penelope's nervous system collapses and she faints into her fiancé's arms. Cut to black on this absurd plot twist. Gossip is flying and society is divided. Is Cressida Cowper really Lady Whistledown? Colin visits Penelope to see how she's doing after her faint and takes the chance to put the engagement ring on her finger. However, he notices an ink stain on her hand. Penn pulls a fast one, saying she was just writing letters, but the tension is at spy movie levels. Colin swallows the excuse but remains outraged at Whistledown, unaware he's sleeping with the enemy. Eloise tries to give her ex-friend a master exit. She suggests Penn let Cressida take the blame and the fame, retiring the column forever. It would be the perfect crime, but Penelope's pride gets the better of her. She can't stand to see her rival taking credit for her life's work. It's like if someone tried to steal Taylor Swift's masters. Meanwhile, Cressida is desperate to escape her toxic family and to secure the queen's reward, writes a forged gossip sheet. Everything culminates at the Mondrich ball. Cressida crashes the party and distributes her pirated version of the column. The queen is intrigued, but Penelope flips out. She decides she must publish a real edition immediately to unmask the imposter. She rushes to the printer in the dead of night, feeling like an action movie protagonist, but she makes a fatal mistake. She doesn't check the rearview mirror. Colin follows the carriage, sees the negotiation with the printer, and the gig is up. The look of disappointment on his face when he discovers the truth hurts more than the ending of Marley and Me. The secret is out.
Colin.
You are Lady Whistledown.
The atmosphere is incredibly heavy. Colin finally learns the truth and goes full drama queen, saying he'll never forgive Penelope for all the gossip she spread about his family. Meanwhile, Cressida Cowper tries to take on the mantle of Lady Whistledown, but her version is so bad it looks like a cheap shine knockoff compared to the Chanel original. The Ton reads it and basically throws it in the trash. To prove who's boss, Penelope releases a real edition that unmasks the imposter instantly, keeping Queen Charlotte very much in the game. Even with the groom fuming with rage and acting like a martyr, the wedding is still on. We get a super awkward bachelor party where Colin drinks his weight in liquor to forget his problems, while Benedict receives a challenger-style invitation for a throuple with Tilly and her friend Paul. The night before the big day, Colin and Penn have one of those intense fights in front of the modiste that turns into a makeout session to hide from a passing carriage, but his resentment remains rock solid. The wedding arrives, and despite the "will he say I don't" vibe, they exchange rings. But the party turns into an episode of Real Housewives when the queen crashes the wedding breakfast, demanding that Whistledown reveal herself right then and there. Francesca, in a masterstroke, announces her engagement to the quiet John Sterling to divert attention and save her sister-in-law's skin. When the dust settles, Colin demands Penn stop writing, but she stands her ground, saying the column is part of who she is. The result? A wedding night with the groom sleeping on the sofa. And to make things worse, Cressida starts investigating the print shops and discovers the true writer is a redhead. The noose is tightening. The post-wedding vibe is colder than an Alaskan winter. Colin is sleeping on the couch and giving Penelope that awkward silent treatment we all hate. But peace is short-lived because Cressida Cowper shows up at Penn's door ready to cause chaos. She's figured out the secret and is now blackmailing the redhead. She wants double the queen's reward to keep her mouth shut. Portia finds out everything and, in a plot twist, is impressed by the empire her daughter built, yet desperate over the threat. Colin tries to play the hero and talks to Cressida, appealing to her sentimentality, but the blonde is in full villain era. Think Regina George in Mean Girls, and says she doesn't want apologies. She wants her money and reputation back. Meanwhile, Benedict ends things with Tilly because he realizes his vibe is to be free and unattached. Francesca and John Sterling marry in a very low-key monarchy ceremony and decide to move to Scotland. Eloise, tired of the Mayfair monotony, hitches a ride to live outside the bubble for a while. Everything explodes at the ball organized by Pen's sisters, which is decorated with tacky butterflies. The queen arrives thirsty for blood, but Penelope takes the most courageous step of the series. She takes the stage and reveals herself in front of everyone. She delivers a humble speech, like a cancelled YouTuber apology, admitting her mistakes.
It was easy to cast aspersions from the shadows where I could not be found. But I see now how much courage it takes to live a life out in the open.
The queen, surprising everyone, decides to forgive her because, after all, gossip makes the world go round. Colin finally puts his pride aside, accepts his wife's talent, and they make up. Cressida is sent away by her parents, and we get a sweet time jump. Pen has a son, the heir, saving the family, and now signs the column with her own name. Oh, and Francesca meets her husband's cousin, Michaela, and completely freezes up, leaving a new mystery in the air.